The religious habits of some serious professors of religion are adapted to make a very unfavorable impression on the minds of sensible men. They assume a demure and sanctimonious air, and speak in an affected and drawling tone, often sighing and lifting up their eyes and giving audible utterances to their requests. Now, these people may be, and I doubt not, often are, truly pious, but the impressions made on most minds by this affectation of religious solemnity is that they are hypocrites who aim at being thought uncommonly devout. It appears to me that Christianity never appears so lovely as when she wears the dress of perfect simplicity. We ought not, indeed, to be ashamed of our religion before the world, but it behooves us to be very careful not to give to others an unfavorable opinion of serious piety. The rule is, let your light so shine that others, seeing your good works, may glorify your Father who is in heaven. Let not your good be evil spoken of. But the aspect and character of the piety of one age may differ from that of another, more from the peculiar circumstances in which Christians are placed than from the prevalence of erroneous views or incorrect habits. In one age, vital piety seeks retirement and runs in hidden channels. At such a time, the attention of Christians is turned chiefly on themselves. Much time is devoted to devotional exercises, often whole days. The secret recesses of the heart are explored with diligence and rigor. Indwelling sin is detected in its multiform appearances, and is mortified with invincible resolution. The various means of personal growth in grace are studied, and much useful knowledge of the nature of the spiritual life in the soul is acquired. But while vital piety is thus carefully cultivated, and the attention is earnestly turned to the exercises of the heart, there may be very little display of active, enlarged benevolence. There may be few vigorous efforts made to ameliorate the condition of the multitudes perishing in sin. Under the influence of these defective views of the nature of religion, many pious people in the early ages of Christianity withdrew entirely from the world and lived in the wilderness, which mistake occasioned innumerable evils to the Church, the effects of which are not yet obliterated. The spirit of piety among the Reformers seems to have been pure and vigorous, but not as expansive as it might have been. They seem scarcely to have thought of the hundreds of millions of heathen in the world, and of course made no efforts to extend the knowledge of salvation to them. Indeed, they were so much occupied at home in contending for the faith against the Romanists that they had little time left for benevolent enterprises at a distance. But if that zeal which was worse than wasted in controversy with one another had been directed to the conversion of the heathen, their usefulness would have been far greater than it was. The Puritans also, although profoundly acquainted with experimental Christianity, seem to have confined their attention too exclusively to themselves. Their ministers were, it is true, silenced and driven into corners and into exile by an ungrateful and tyrannical government, but it seems wonderful to us that when prevented from preaching the gospel to their own countrymen, they did not turn to the Gentiles. But the era of missions had not yet arrived, and probably they had but small opportunity, in their persecuted state, of uniting their counsels or combining their energies in schemes of distant benevolence. One thing, however, is now manifest, that the providence of God overruled the retirement and leisure of those godly ministers who were ejected from their churches, so as to render their labors more useful to the Church than if they had been permitted to spend their lives in preaching the gospel. For, when deprived of the liberty of employing their tongues, they betook themselves to their pens, and they have left to the Church such a body of practical theology as all ages before or since cannot equal. I have no doubt that such men as Owen, Baxter, Flavel, Bunyan, Goodwin, Manton, Howe, and Bates have effected much more good by their practical writings than they could possibly have done by their preaching, supposing them to have been ever so successful. But our lot is cast in a different age and in a different state of the Church. After a long slumber, the attention of Christians has been aroused to consider the perishing condition of the heathen. We live in a period when great designs are entertained and plans formed for the conversion of the whole world. When one benevolent enterprise or institution follows another in rapid succession, Christians have begun to feel that by a combination of effort they have power to accomplish much. The public attention is kept awake by the frequent recurrence of public meetings of an interesting kind, and by that more potent engine, the wide circulation of religious periodicals, by which interesting intelligence is conveyed to almost every corner of our extensive country. The duty of Christians to be active is now inculcated in almost every form. Tracts are multiplied, the Scriptures are circulated, the young and ignorant are instructed by new methods, and many are found running to and fro to promote the propagation of evangelical truth. The number of serious Christians is vastly increased, and many youth are brought forward to a course of preparation for the gospel ministry. A spirit of liberality also is witnessed, unknown to our fathers, and the duty of consecrating to the Lord a reasonable proportion of all their increase is beginning to be extensively felt among serious Christians. And such is the spirit of enterprise that no undertaking appears too arduous, which has for its object the advancement of the Redeemer's kingdom. And such is the favor of heaven towards benevolent enterprises in our day, that scarcely one has failed of accomplishing some good. Now, in all these favorable appearances and benevolent exertions, every pious heart must and will rejoice. But is there no danger that many who feel interested in the operations of the day and contribute to their advancement should be mistaken as to their true spiritual condition? When a powerful current takes a set, many will be carried along with it, whichever way it may run. And is there no danger that Christians themselves, while they seem to flourish in external profession, zeal, and activity, may be decaying at the root for lack of sufficient attention to their own hearts and to their duties in prayer? There is indeed much reason to fear that many professors now exist, who confine religion too much to those external acts which may be performed from motives no higher than those which operate on unrenewed men. The danger now is that the religion of the heart will be neglected, and that many will feel well satisfied with themselves on account of their activity and zeal, who are yet strangers to a work of grace. This being the point on which Christians of the present day are liable to err, it is a matter of congratulation that some writers seem disposed to turn the attention of the Christian public to the importance of diligence and punctuality in performing the duties of the closet.